please. I hope you got some fresh air and you enjoyed the coffee. It was a nice break, I think. And now we're getting back. By the way, we have Smart here with us today, Smart Cooperative, which is a production house based here in Stockholm. It's our sister company at Intercult. Supporting artists and cultural workers, we have here Shekufe, Elin, and Maria. If you have any questions and if you want to know what SMART is, please. So let's continue. So following our break, we are convening our expert panel for the roundtable discussion on building resilient waterfront cities. And leading the discussion, we have Thomas Rebermark, Director of Swedish Waterhouse at Stockholm International Water Institute, joined by Luigia Brantimare, Associate Professor and Docent in Hydraulic Engineering at KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Marta Bolham, CEO and Partner at Gaia Architecture, and Magnus Arnell, Program Manager for Waterwise Societies. So please, you're welcome.
I'll sit here.
You have that one.
I have that one, so I don't need two. I was confused. Multitasking is not my strength. So, welcome, all of you here listening. And I don't know if this is can be referred to as bubble hopping that I heard about today, but maybe some kind of example. And let's see when we're finished. So, distinguished panel and water and climate friends, I would say, welcome to this roundtable. In Stockholm, a city shaped by its water and its history, at a pivotal time for urban waterfronts around the world. So as sea levels rise, storms grow stronger and rainfall patterns shift, the challenges facing our cities are both immediate, interconnected, touching on infrastructure, cultural heritage, and social equity, and environmental resilience, which Stockholm self exemplifies. Today, we're not only here to address these challenges, but also to explore solutions. Innovative ideas that are rooted in science, policy, and urban design, and that in respect to both the legacy and the future of the places we call our homes. So we want to frame this conversation in the wider context. Across the globe, water insecurity and climate effects, a climate effect, urban areas from Rio de Janeiro to Mumbai, to Rotterdam, to Cape Town, to Singapore, and to Stockholm, underscoring the importance of international collaboration and knowledge sharing, whilst reminding us that our work connects Swedish practice, science, and innovation to a worldwide movement for water-smart, resilient cities. So with this in mind, let me introduce Luigia and Marta and Magnus. Welcome. I would like to start with asking you a common question that you can have, each one of you, to share a brief reflection, gladly provocative, from your area of expertise, whether it's a case study, a policy insight, or a general insight, or a design solution on how to build cities that are not only water smart, but also culturally grounded and resilient. So if I start with you, Luigia, would you please?
That is a very difficult question, Thomas. As you introduced this topic, I think it's not just the fact that our water cities are strongly affected by the expected influence of... Sorry?
Speak louder.
Oh, okay. Now? No. Okay. Okay, then I'll be louder.
Yeah.
Okay. So So what I was saying is that it's not just that our water cities are affected by the expected changes due to climate, but it's also the combination with our other global factors like population dynamics, urbanization. And as we know, the cities that are on the coastal areas or along rivers are highly increasing the vulnerability to these global factors. So, and when I think of solutions, then I get a bit scared and skeptical because I'm afraid that it will be very different to find a solution that works for all.
Mhm.
We need to really look at what kind of society, what kind of hazard are we dealing with. At the same time, we can think of approaches that can be sort of tailor-made for different societies and different hydrological or climate contexts. For example, if we think of Stockholm, and then I'll shut up. If we think of Stockholm, I think that is okay. I think I don't need the microphone.
There's a hand mic there.
Yes. Maybe.
It's on.
Okay. If we think of Stockholm, for example, I think we are in a way lucky because Stockholm is a city that has, well, it's surrounded by water, it's surrounded by nature. It is highly vulnerable, but at the same time, it has the social and economic context to try to address these global drivers. There are other cities, other contexts that do not have the same capabilities. So definitely we can talk about this later, but definitely it has the potential to find a solution that works for Stockholm.
Thank you, Luigia. And apologies for me not introducing you. You are from KTH Royal Institute of Technology, and you're an expert in flood risk management. So thank you for that. So correcting my mistake and moving on to you, Magnus. You are program manager for Water-Wise Societies. You're driving solutions that drive solutions for climate adaptation and resilient communities. But you're also part of the national committee, I almost said.
Yeah, the National Expert Committee on Climate Adaptation in Sweden.
So thank you. How would you respond to the question just addressed?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm by training an engineer working in research. And so we see many examples, of course, of technical solutions trying to mitigate climate risks, to do climate adaptation. From small small-scale solution at property level, up to grand solutions trying to protect from sea level rise, for example. But there's also some really grand failures with some of these grand solutions. And I could specifically point to two. One where they were aiming to build a coastal protection for sea level rise in Skåne, in most southern parts of Sweden, where the property owners closest to the coast, the one most exposed to that sea level rise, actually did not want that and stopped it because it, of course, affected the value of their properties. And the other one from Australia, where during the Millennium Drought some 15 years ago, the city built a large water recovery plant for recovering wastewater in order to get water supply mainly for industry. But the politicians didn't manage to motivate it to the people in order for them to accept the solution. And in both cases, I think it's really an effect of you have to have the public engagement. You have to have public acceptance for the solutions that we want, and we need public behaviors that support these solutions to work.
Thank you, Magnus. And with that, we sort of segue over to you, Marta Bollmark. You're at Gaia Architectures. You're an expert on sustainable urban design. What would you respond to this be, or an insight, or a challenging idea?
Thank you. I can be heard, right? Yeah. Good. Yeah. So I agree with both of you. It's not a matter of necessarily exactly how do we do it. It's not maybe just a technical approach, but I think a big kind of discussion we need to have is how do we look upon nature and the city and our environment? Is it something that we can just use as a resource, or is it actually a living system in itself, the water body, which it obviously is, and the living environment in our city? And why is there even a conflict between culture and nature, for example? Is that something we're creating in our minds? So I think the discussion about the approach to the city and our different kind of nature systems is key. So with having that said, that's kind of the approach we chose when we started up Gaia 5 years ago, saying that how can we contribute as architects working with the city as a whole? And so we try to do a systematic analysis, and yes, everything is included. Everything needs to be included. It's a broad discussion. It's a democracy, I heard, we live in. So and the questions about the water and nature and climate, I mean, it's top of the list. So it is prioritized somehow, but I think we need more examples. And then again, is the example one way of doing it? If you ask an architect, it's always space specific. So the why, if we've agreed on that, then let's discuss how. And the hows, well, it has to do with everything as well. How are we organized in our day and time? How do we have discussions, or are we having arguments? And then what? Then everything is possible. So just to mention a few cases that we have in a project that we call Massa project. We are trying to execute a lagoon in inner Stockholm. So basically building new reefs, creating a lagoon space, 6.5 hectares. So basically it's nature restoration somehow, but it's also culture restoration. And then again, it's also creating a new body in the water. And of course, I mean, that's a sensitive issue. It has to be been done the right way. So the process for moving forward, and we gotten quite far. I got some good news today, without saying too much. Well, it's to include everyone. I mean, not only to get maybe the engagement is one thing, but the knowledge from the people living at the site, from technical engineers, from ecologists, from the people actually that are working with the fish in this wonderful city, that kind of thinks it would be a good idea that we can still have fish in this city.
Good.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that is insightful, and thank you for sharing your perspectives and insights. If we move from what you just addressed and dive a little bit further into what, in what ways can urban planners, you gave an example, research and policymakers and cultural workers, if I may say so, collaborate to create those cities able to weather climate-driven cities or the climate-driven challenges? If I start with you this time, Marta, you can continue.
Yes. Well, so our contribution is kind of saying that can we contribute with the examples that actually goes the whole way? I mean, from the why down to the what, being site-specific in different sites. So the answer will really be different. But is it possible? I haven't seen anything else so far. But is the system rigged for these kind of projects? No. It's kind of tweaking things everywhere and working really broadly, but not kind of backing off if you get to know, but kind of questioning. So why not? And not to run anyone over, but to actually be, maybe it's being bold, I don't know, and kind of a bit free-spirited.
Yeah.
So you kind of have this
like the
process, and the process is a big key. It's not a project, it's a process.
Good. Free spirits and process. Thank you.
That's what came up.
And what would you respond to that?
Yeah, here I would like to say that working at university means that you do research and you do education. And now here I think one important aspect for me is how do we educate our future. I mean, at KTH, we educate architects and engineers. So the engineer of the coming decades, what kind of profile do they have to have? So we're discussing in this forum, but elsewhere also, the need for multi-sectorial, multidisciplinary environments to tackle these global challenges. But the point is, is it enough to have different disciplines that get together, or do we need to think of different profiles of our engineers? So from my perspective, I think that we should change our engineering programs to try to adapt to the changes of societies. And society is changing at a faster pace than the changes at the university to adapt to that change. So for example, what I think will be next step, at least in education, will be to create what I call a T-shaped engineering profile, where we have the vertical bar of the T that represents the rooted discipline, say civil engineering, for example. But then you have the horizontal bar that represents this broader education into disciplines that are considered not the core of engineering, but that can help our engineers of the future to at least have a dialogue with other disciplines. Putting together on disciplines is not enough. They need to share methods and need to share languages. And so I think that is what I think as the future of contribution, at least from the university side.
Thank you. Thank you. And in a way, Magnus, you are in the sweet spot of all these competences coming together into practical solutions. Could you say that?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I could actually build on that. I really believe in the need of capacity development for working in a collaborative setting. Everyone asks for collaboration, but how do we really are going to achieve it? I think it needs structure, we need responsibilities, and it has to be long-term perspectives in order to sustain that. But I actually have some kind of new results here. So Waterwise Societies, that I'm program director of, is a large Swedish innovation program that started a year and a half ago. And our first 20 projects just finalized and delivered their results. And they're really emphasizing the need of a quadruple helix model, working in collaboration with these types of challenges. And that's, of course, I mean, the four perspectives is then public organization, private, university and research, and civil society. But what they point is that the different types of organizations has different roles and responsibilities in that type of collaboration. Maybe we don't have time to elaborate too much on that, but somehow finding structure where you can formalize that a bit, just putting the right a group of people in a room doesn't make magic. There has to be a structure, and there has to be responsibilities for each one, and there has to be a long-term perspective working with it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to swap. I'm going to change out my questions here and say, with that in perspective, what emerging strategies for being this future green infrastructure, innovative floodgates, urban water recycling, and landscape restoration, cultural heritage acknowledging communities or cities? What do we need to address to our decision makers? If I start with you, Magnus, this time.
It's a big question. Well, also connecting a bit to the theme of the conference here, then maybe I started with saying that I think that public engagement and acceptance and behavioral change to support the implementation of these solutions is important. And I'm also considering quite a bit what Jonas was starting today with talking about not managing the most severe challenges always, but the unacceptable consequences. Maybe we have to work with that prioritization in order to cope with what we need to do. And then I think public engagement, public acceptance becomes even more important. And then I think the cultural practices that we're discussing here can be really a critical part in order to support that.
Thank you. And what would you say, Luigi?
Something that I think is very important is to pay attention to short-term and long-term solutions and unintended consequences of our good intentions. There is, in flood risk management, there is I think, a very interesting concept that was proposed in the 50s by Wright, an American geographer, who called it the Levy paradox.
The Levy.
Levy paradox. So Levy are supposed to protect society from flooding, but what might happen is that by building a levee, what happens is that you decrease the occurrence of overtopping of the bank. So the floodplain gets flooded less often, and that might trigger a fake sense of safety in the public and in the government. So the floodplain suddenly becomes very attractive for urbanization. So you start urbanizing a vulnerable area, and on the long term, if then there is an overtopping of the levee, which is designed for a given return period, then if there is an overtopping, then the consequences are higher. So the risk is higher than if the levee was not there. So we are actually paradoxically increasing the risk.
So that's a paradox.
Not reducing it. Yes, and that is a consequence of the unintended consequences that were not considered. And in my view, this might happen also with other solutions, nature-based solutions. Now, we are, of course, very welcome nature-based solutions, but are we sure that there are not unintended consequences? There is a lot of talking about gentrification, for example. It could be an unintended consequence of nature-based solutions for stormwater management. And I think that a way to try to at least forecast unintended consequences is to get public involvement much more than it's done now, because a local knowledge is something that we need to bring back into the discussion, because it can be a way to try to understand the potential unintended consequences.
Thank you for bringing that aspect, and thank you for giving us a lecture.
No, sorry, that was not
about the levy. We've all been educated.
I didn't want to do
the
that.
mechanism
Sorry.
today. That's fantastic. So thank you, and also bringing in the aspects of utilizing cultural science, if I may say so. That is something we work a lot with indigenous groups and the most vulnerable groups around the globe. So thank you for that. Marta, what do you, if you go back to the original question?
Maybe you want to repeat it for the audience.
No, I said when looking into those green infrastructure and solutions and innovative floodgates and water recycling, etc., and landscape restoration, what would you say is the message we should send to the decision makers that actually has to support us in that pathway forward?
How many hours did I have?
2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Well, I mentioned one thing then. No, but I think turning the tide requires closing the gap somehow. And I mean, referring to the industrial area that has been dividing all the different expertise over a long time, we also have this layering in the other direction, where it's quite far from the top to the bottom. And it's not a matter of either or. It's both and expertise and moving around in the gaps and kind of mending this together. And I think in our day and time, what we see in the projects is there's a big gap between the practitioners and the wisdom. I mean, we have quite a few people that I would say is like 65 plus, up to 85, that's been working with this for such a long time. I mean, knowing the nitty-gritty and the policy making and everything. And if you sit a few hours and listen to them, so we cannot there's so much. I think we know so much about this, really. I think we need to start closing the gaps and get going somehow. And yes, we can make mistakes, but we also act within a frame of we do the best we can. And we are making so many mistakes. So if we make a few mistakes that we can learn by when it comes to nature restoration, I think that it's part of the steps. So I think maybe we also need to allow ourselves, but I mean, put it in the right scale, make small mistakes and not big ones. It was a few things, yeah.
That was a very good segue over to the next part, but it was now we have close the gaps, use the expertise, educate ourselves. We have the knowledge and also the experience and the results from actual projects and implementations. So with that, and to be try to be inclusive with 30 minutes, I'm going to open up for a 1 to 2 minute intervention from any of you in the audience. So you can either be addressing a question or you can share an example, but you have no more than 2 minutes. So please, is there anyone who has a question? Yes, over there. Please come forward and start with your name and
My name is Jenny Marchetu. I am a visual artist. I live in New York. I am a professor at the school at the new school. But I want to address, you said about, do you know about the Billion Oyster Project?
Absolutely. I know everything about that because we've been involved in that source to see oyster project.
As I want to because I'm part of the Billion Oyster Project.
Wow.
And we work on Governor's Island.
Yeah.
And we found out, actually, right now we have 90,000 students. We have 9,000 volunteers, 130 restaurants that they work and they bring, as you know, the material. But what I want to say is that we found this somehow Lenape cosmologies, how to clean the water by creating reefs and growing oysters, which not only help floods, but also help the community to understand how to clean and how to sustain a harbor like New York Harbor. So this is an amazing example that I think many cities should follow with very simple means to clean and to protect your river cities. Yeah. Because New York has 3 rivers, and right now we can swim in the harbor, which is amazing. That's a few years ago, and we learn all these cosmologies, I would say, from the Lenape, because they were using the oysters, making biocements, and they taught us how to make reefs and grow corals and grow all these ecosystems. Yeah. So this is what I want to bring as a wonderful example of protecting river cities.
Thank you so much. That is worth an applaud. Absolutely. And I must confess, I get goosebumps to meet you because it's just 10 days ago I read up on where the project is, and I read about the 90,000 students, the restaurants, and what the effects has been in the harbor around the clean water. It's fantastic.
A very small town in Greece called Elefsina that we try to create the same system to clean the water there.
It's cool. Go to her and talk after this. That's cool. So thank you for bringing that good example in that also brings in the nature perspective, the experience and so on.
Thomas,
yeah.
One more question here.
One more question. Do we have time? You're the organizer.
I think so.
Okay,
I would like to ask that very much. and ask for your comment. As project, as organization, we're often in the context of research, working with institutions like Royal Institute of Technology and other universities of that type. I am meeting a lot of researchers on my way, and it sometimes feels like we are living on two different planets. There is a tones of materials about resilient waterfront cities, how to build, how to work with the climate change, and so on and so on. How do we make the connection between the research world and the world of regular civil society?
I think I would like to pass that question on to the experts. I'm a generalist, so I have my topic on that. But you have now 30 seconds each. If I start with you, Luigia, we started with university aspects and the different universities, how can they collaborate, but also out of the bubble hopping. We're back to the bubble hopping.
Yeah, but I think that's I totally agree with you, and I think we missed a language. We missed a common ground that was mentioned before. We have different perspectives, and it's difficult, I think, to try to say. We need more empathy towards each other and more sort of respect towards each other disciplines. I think this is something that we can achieve with more collaboration outside the disciplines. I think the disciplines is keeping us slaves of our own discipline, our own knowledge. That's what I think.
Thank you. That's a very good. Yeah. So with that, Magnus, your 30 seconds on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge question, of course, and research is really challenging or struggling on how to get out there and get more implementation. And it's partly because of the funding system that this is challenging. But I think one of the key parts is having necessity-driven research and development. And the other is realizing that any implementation and scaling is really context-specific, coming back to that the problems are global, but the solutions has always to be locally implemented somehow. And then you have to address the local context.
Thank you. And Marta, you're the creative sort of.
Well, yeah, I mean, bridging theory and practice, and if you look, and it's always about people. So you need to bring your person into it. I mean, that's when things happen. You share a common goal, and you have the driving force, and your skill then can just contribute in different ways. Supposedly 80% is called silent knowledge. 20% you can formalize. So throwing people in a room is a good way, and even better is when you have like an event and you bring the artists and you have a dinner together and you just have the chats. It's kind of the in between, throw in the kids and throw in the fishes and the policy makers and everyone in between, and magic can happen.
Yep.
So that's a good.
So more magic.
Way.
So thank you all for your wisdom and insights and sharing of knowledge and education. And thank you for the good example we had from, sorry, I'm bad with names, but I will get to know you after this. In a broader context, today's conversation, I think, has reflected the vision of turning the tide, how we overcome or what obstacles we need to overcome today's water and climate challenges. So if we look into the broader context also with the work you are doing in the cartography area, did I say it right? In Glasgow, Vienna, Evia, and Gdansk and Stockholm, I think that exemplifies the challenges we face in many waterfront communities or cities or countries. So moving forward, water smart cities must integrate climate adaptation, we can conclude that, cultural identity, and community voices to seek global exchange, displaying local solutions, back to what you said, if I can say that, to inspire and to scale. So together, I would say let's use this moment not just to guard against threats, but also seize the immense potential that cities can prosper within while staying culturally vibrant and ecologically resilient in an era of a profound change. So thank you for listening, and let's turn the tide together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Thomas, for a brilliant moderation of this dialogue. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's move to the any questions, by the way. Then I think we discussed it already. But, so let's move to the next session and let's actually see what we are discussing in action. I would like to invite again Jonas Althage and Germaine Sanders, architect and artist from the Netherlands. Germaine and Jonas will discuss about how an artist can meet a science. Yes, please. Where are you? Huh? Sorry? Where is Germaine? Yes. Do we have Germaine and Jonas with us?
They're getting the microphones.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Didn't see you.
Can we see? Yep, working.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Shall we just jump straight into it then? So this is an unmoderated, unstructured, non-planned discussion.
It's free speaking.
Free speech. Yeah. Would you like to start just with a reflection maybe on what you've heard today, since I've said a little bit before?
I have heard many, many interesting things. Close the gap. Close the gap. Yeah, so right. How do you do it? We need another language, has been said. I agree totally. And what I would propose is to use the drawing language, because the drawing language is a universal language, and not to see how big your art is that you make, but simple sketches. Everyone can do it. Use the simple sketch, quick and dirty, to show what you think of. And once you show a topic that you think of, then, of course, you have reason to start a conversation, not about being friendly, being polite, but about explaining what you're thinking of, and the other will respond because your complete brain is activated. That's what the drawing language gives you. So for this universal or other language that is needed to close the gap, yeah, a drawing language could be a good start. And it has been mentioned, of course, and you have showed it already.
Yeah, and I agree. And I've got quite a technical background. I'm very results driven. I like to work efficient, spend time getting good results. But within all my field, everyone I work with, this never comes up. It's never communicated issues, problems, opportunities through art, through stories. So it's I think we don't get that emotional connection that we can get to these issues, and these, like you say, use your whole brain when we're working with this. So then we're a bit hampered in what we can actually achieve, because you don't get that full brain, full body, full spirit emphasize into this issue. And I think it excludes a lot of people as well, possibly when we are communicating.
Yeah, I agree, but that's also because our education systems are mostly based on language, words. And then, next to that, we sold ourselves to our machineries, to our screens. Now, we don't even write anymore because, well, we write our prompts to the AI programs. We don't think anymore. And it has been said before, to create solutions or even to do research and do a critical analysis, you said it yourself, you showed us. It's about complexity. Your slide with all the little frames and the different perspectives that are needed to research. Complexity, to think about complexity, you need the capability to abstract. And to abstract your thinking means that you have overview. And using screens and using fragments, you don't have an overview. Reading a book, you have an overview. And this overview gives you a red line, and the red line makes you think deeper. And then if you use different languages, because if you work together with other people, other cultural backgrounds, other disciplines, it's there. So the connection or the bridging that has been mentioned also today, it's really important, but it shouldn't mean that you bridge everything or that you connect everything. It should mean that you are critical enough to find out a red line or what did you call the main topic? The most urgent risk that needs to do the most important solution that needs to be found. How do you find out? Yeah, that is abstract thinking is needed in complex assignments, issues, and it's a joy if you have the tools to train your abstract thinking. But it's hard work, it's active learning, and you have to do it. You can't let your machinery do it. And times will change, because now that we got used to the fact that everyone is ruled by machinery, we also get annoyed by it. We also get bored by it. So it will happen. It will happen. I think. I hope.
Yeah, and I think, but moving into the area that Deer Hunter is going to finish here later on, if we think of cartography and creating maps as a form of art, going into maps and cultural history and like the development of cities, which is, you find this in imagery, you don't find this in reports. You will you would rather kill yourself than read these reports sometime. You feel like looking at maps, connecting to artistic drawings in maps is also quite powerful. And I think that sometimes in order to find out where you have some of these risks, for example, all you need to do is look at a map that's 150 years old, because we have, for examples, just in Stockholm, the old swamp, which is located a kilometer away from here, that had the old river down to a bay that's now reclaimed, landfilled. If you look at where the water was historically 150 years ago, and we look at where do we have severe flood risks in that area, it follows the outline of the swamp, follows the old river down to the old bay that's now closed off by a bridge and you've raised the ground around it, trapping the water. That's one example. Got in southern Stockholm, where you've built houses around Spring Flood Park, which is pretty self-explanatory when this area floods and if it's suitable to build there or not. In other towns, you can have Mountain Creek Road, where there used to be a creek, there's now a road. So if you live in, all you need to do in some cities is look at the name of your street, and you can level yourself on the risk scale for flooding, for example. And it's extremely obvious when you look at a map, not today's map, but a historic map. And this is information that's available free of charge in places like this, in museums. So you can basically do a flood analysis by going to a local museum and see, do I live around these blue lines and blue areas that were here a couple of 100 years ago? Of course, you need to develop cities as well, but using this visual language to your benefit is something that I think is gravely underestimated. And I left my talk about this, how can you use art not only as communication, but then also as a catalyst when you try to work with climate adaptation. And I think this works more or less well, depending on scale, of course. If we look at Slussen, the 300 million euro flood defense installation in that project, it's not going to be centered as an art piece, perhaps. You can, of course, design such a big, enormous space. But these areas where I'm looking into more, and you might have seen some images flash around here in the background of these sometimes quite ugly infrastructure environments. All of those images represent one of these highest category risk assets that we've identified. And they're mostly looking quite ugly, which is perfectly suitable then for investing in art and other installations as form of actually protecting those assets. Because you need the acceptance of the public space to be beautiful, like you want it to flourish. You want to create not just a flood protection, because I don't care if anyone knows if it is a flood protection. I want to integrate it into the city. I want it to stay there for 100 years, like I said in my talk. And I can think of few better ways of increasing the possibility of that asset staying there than turning it into an artwork, because then it has inherent value and it becomes part of the public space and it defines it. And all of a sudden you have 3 different authorities you have to go through in able to be allowed to move it. So it might stay there, which is exactly what we want.
Yeah, but that exactly is the value of an image or a drawing or a piece of art, because the image is an open way of communicating, whereas words and language is linear. I listen, you bring in many, many topics. I have to be careful. Okay, yeah, okay, can I follow? Oh yeah. No, but the image allows you, well, it doesn't matter if it's a beautiful image or an ugly image or a wonderful image.
You get one here now. Sorry. Look at this rusty old rail.
Yes.
There's a lot of value you can add to this space and save 100 million euros in damages in that area.
That is asking for a solution for a specific question. But you were also mentioning a map, for example. Look at the map and you know the risk for flooding if you study a map. Well, a map is a wonderful piece of image and a wonderful example of open communication. Because you look at the map and you know about flooding, you can study it. Someone else is looking at the map and learns about the history. Someone else is looking at the map and knows about place, distance, physical space, and so on. Everything at the same time. There is one map and you all look at the same map. Same for an image. If you ask how could we improve this ugly location, it's a solution, because first of all, what makes it ugly? How long will it be ugly? Why is it important? And if you put the question in a sentence, in words, you cannot find out easily what could be a good solution. If you point out, if you focus on what makes this place ugly, is it the rust? Is it the material? Is it the space? Is it the context? It could be a very easy way to explain. And then you are discussing, or you're capable to discuss or cooperate with people with totally different perspective, because they are there. And it might seem difficult, or well, do I need to know how to visualize a topic like that? Yeah, you all can. All you need is something to indicate with and something to carry your indication. And then you have indicated it. And then everyone can see it. And not only see it, but understand in their own way. And then you're talking. So I would recommend to everyone, you don't need to draw whatever, but I would recommend, if you are really willing to bridge the disciplines or the different cultures, or even what was the hopping, the bubble hopping, the bubble hop. If you really want to bubble hop, it is not a trick, because a trick doesn't work. It's a mindset. I'm convinced of that. So please, if you want to solve very complex issues or corporations or risks or whatever, take it easy. I would say take it easy and focus to find out what can you share, what is worth sharing. And you cannot predict that. You can only find out by really sharing. And language, words do not help you, because in linear conversation, communication, it's parallel. And if you interrupt, yeah, you can intertwine a bit, but then people say, hey, take it easy, take it easy. No, just find the image. And you did this wonderful example in your last slide as a cover of a report of very, very political, in the end, information, and the image, and some might not even notice, but they take it, they see. So they might not be capable to explain the effect, but it will have an effect on them. And you are aware, if you are the author of this document, that the effects will be different. So up to you to find out in a playful way. And there you are, already 3 layers deeper in thinking and in decision making than you would be after. Did you read the report? Well, can you please make a cover letter of it, or the decision document, and so on? So we need words, and words are great. But even a book, if you read a book, it's not a collection of words, it's imagination. If you read it actively. And if you read a book and I read a book and someone else reads the same book, they will be different. How do you find out? Well, you can talk about it. That's difficult because you have long talks. But you can also try and catch an image about it. And that is the power of visualizing thought. I'm telling nothing new. I'm sorry.
May I interrupt and say that maybe if someone wants to make a comment during the dialogue, you're more than welcome. But please continue.
Yeah, jump in.
Dialogue with us, please.
Hi, I'm Eva Stach. I am an architect, and in my practice, I see often such discussions. So my question is, do you have a common ground?
Between us? I actually feel I said this is completely unstructured, and it is an unstructured dialogue. Of course, we've actually never met before, but we've met over Zoom.
We Zoomed. And
we talked for an hour on Zoom about pretty much nothing really related to what we're going to talk about here. We just started talking about the topic and then not really being concerned about this session here. There is a common interest, and I feel we have very different different backgrounds, but we have the same type of mindset, although mine is centered on a different sector than yours. But I feel, this is what I said earlier, like, I don't think we primarily need technical experts, because technical experts are experts at something very technical. We need something that's like bridging small interest, focusing on the bigger picture. And
I think we concluded finding out that we're both engineers with an engineer mindset, and an engineer's mindset is you want to make something work, or at least you like to understand how things work. And then we concluded that the water is common ground for us, because water. But there, the difference was, yes, technical, very scientific, and for me, more poetic. The water is so, and there we elaborate on that. So that was our common ground that we, found during 1 hour. Yeah, okay. See, it takes time.
Can
But we
I
did.
share something on that? Because I was in the same meeting together with Hannah. We just popped the concept of that dialogue, and they just started speaking for 1 hour. We didn't say anything. We were just hearing them. And at the end, we said, "Can you do that on stage, actually?" So this is the background. I wanted to share that.
Were you there in the meeting? I didn't know.
Exactly to my point.
Yeah, and I mean, something we did talk about is also this, like, I really think there is a potential, like, from my very, very limited exposure to the art and art community, somehow it's the same issue sometimes. Like, you know, you need financing for certain things. Like, this venue is super expensive. You're allowed to be here, but it's also with the installation of art in society, and like, we cannot build flood protection in large part of the inner city, at least, unless we make it attractive. We cannot even build it if we leave it a zero-sum game, like that it's as good or as bad as it was before we get there. If we want to protect this 100 million euro risk asset, the transport department, which is like, it's not focused on cars, it's public space. It's a bad name for our department because we work with the public space as well. The demand is like, this needs to be improved, otherwise you're not allowed to do it. And that means sometimes we can access much more funding because we might collaborate with stakeholders that pay for the basics, the getting the building site up and running, materials, and then we have demands on how to shape it, how to add value, and we pay for that because that's our business. We get extra added value out from it. And if we can collaborate with, which I clumsily now label the art sector, this like plannable installation of art as means of being able to protect society from physical risks. There are those lines of communication and collaboration that we can achieve if we have plannable funding. We have plannable funding. We can get it even more from other actors. And then it's a question, can we then sync our work with this community, with the artists who have other funding but don't have a space, that maybe have ideas but not funding? There's a lot of untapped potential, and visualizing it from the beginning, like what can it look like, what can we do, is a huge opportunity, reaching those people who can make those decisions, maybe not to implement, but say, we should look into this. So by drawings, by designs, by being imaginative.
Yeah, and maybe you saw the hares passing by. because that is what is most important. Also, to answer your question again, it's not only do you understand. If you want people to get involved or being cooperative, it's also, do you feel and do you see? Do you see and do you feel? And so do you understand? Of course, it's clear knowledge, complexity, but people will not understand, because if you're the expert, you don't, your audience shouldn't become an expert before they understand you. They should they should be capable to understand what you mean in other ways, and that is what art could be contribute.
May I? Yeah. Okay, so you both come from countries that have history with fighting the waters and everything. On the other side, Greece is strongly involved in this project, Turning the Tide. And then in the mythology of the Greece is this wonderful myth of Atlantida, of the synced civilization. So how would you eventually react or reflect upon this myth, which is in the core of our civilization, having in mind what you are doing? But also, I very much liked one of the drawings there, which is showing Homo ludens, but it's also perpetuum mobile, so that how we place then here also the hope that there was some of the intervention beforehand. It's a very poetic questions, but okay.
Yeah, but you gave the answer. Homo ludens, keep going and keep it playful, but with the open mind and with the historical heart. You know that you're not new in this world, and you know that you won't be here in the end. But the world will go on, and we should take care of that by playing and by playing and moving on. So everything that's going on here, even today, it's proving that idea.
Yeah, a little bit more of a current observation in connection to Atlantis, you said, yeah, on a smaller scale, but especially for smaller cities, it's gonna be really, really tough times coming. We have some towns on the west coast, for example, they've had demographic changes. People are moving out of the town. They don't get the employment rate is a bit higher than average. Economically, it's quite tough times. And then they're located on the coastline, and they have lots of harbors and piers that are basically breaking down. It's not cost efficient to renovate to protect what they already own, let alone build new protections. How they solve this is usually the only way they can economically, by developing those areas, building again where it is the most vulnerable. And this is an issue where I think it's not connected to a sensation, your soul. It's because you're looking at a very short time perspective. You make excuses well, the building's got a 80 to 100 year technical life length. That is not correct. Stuff standing out here is older than 100 years. No one builds a building hoping to demolish it after 100 years or abandoning it. That's just incorrect interpretations. But how is that community gonna survive and thrive if they don't develop? And they can only develop so much, so resilient without going basically bankrupt. How is that town going to survive unless they do develop there? Because they need to attract people moving there. They need to attract employment. That's the council's way of doing it. It's the best means some councils have, but it doesn't then take the long-term perspective. if you look at a nation, because an individual town on a national scale is not as important as it is to that council, if you follow what I mean. And that's, for us, it's our council have self-determination, planning, monopoly. They can do basically whatever they want as long as they build within the legal framework. But looking at this climate adaptation and communicating what's actually the national impact of each and everyone developing their own council, planning their own best solutions from a council by council by council perspective, to basically move the same people, because we're not getting more people. It's the people being redistributed, or councils are fighting over people, basically, attracting people, attracting tax revenues so they can increase the level of their services. But it doesn't add up on a national scale. And how are you going to communicate that? No idea. So some interactive, huge art exhibition for council, national government agency members. Maybe that's the way to go. There's no other way of combining that information into an experience other than doing visual language, I think.
Right. No, the experience is the magic word here, because to share and to get people or parties engaged, it will only happen if you are sharing the experience, because that makes you feel, even if you don't understand. And it is not necessary that everyone understands or agrees to collaborate. But it is important that once you engage yourself, or once you get engaged and once you get involved, you have this yes inside yourself. Yes, there is something in it for me, from that sense, up to, I don't understand, but it's great, I get chicken pox, whatever. What's that? Yeah. See, the feeling is underrated, because it's soft, it's female, it's poetic, it's vague. It's very much underrated in economical or political context. But it works.
Yeah,
I think it can go forever,
Yes.
And it's so nice to have you. And I truly wish that we could stay much longer.
No, it's fine.
But thank you for that. And we continue in the same kind of concept. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sorry.
So next and final, I would like to invite dear Hunter, Marlies Vermeulen and Remy Kroser for some final reflections of the day. And they're putting on their microphones and they're coming. I don't know what this is. I didn't want presentation. No, but we know.
All right. Oh, it's already on. Shall I start?
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. It will be difficult to be to be here after the conversation just before us, but I was wondering if we could make this a bit of an intimate session, and if you like, please come a bit closer. We'll come a bit closer too. Sorry,
Yeah.
Bernd. So come a bit closer if you like. If you don't, it's fine too if you prefer your personal space. But let's make it a bit more intimate. Yeah. Yes.
You're all right?
I'm fine.
Everyone that is standing, find a seat, do whatever you want, participate or not. But yeah, let's close it off in an informal way. That was our idea.
Yes.
That is Marlies. My name is Remy. We're from Deer Hunter. We are project partners in Turning the Tide, meaning, we have a kind of double role. We both practitioner. We make this cartopological maps, as you have heard. Almost the last one of the project here in Stockholm.
Yes.
We are about to make an atlas, whatever that will become. That's what we promised when we wrote the project. And now I think it's a moment to start thinking about what did we learn on these 5 locations. What can we get out of it? How to compare, whatever. Yes. And we see this dialogue also as, we're opening up our kitchen now, and we ask some questions during the past days. So we will reflect upon what we have found, maybe mainly in Stockholm, but also in the previous locations, and also what we've heard like yesterday and today. Mm-hmm. We don't have, urgent issues, big words, but we have maybe some questions, some thoughts. Please shout out if you don't agree or if you have something to add. That is highly appreciated.
Yes. We're only 20 centimeters higher because they ask us to sit here, but that's the only difference. Maybe one thing that I would like to add, if you allow me, is that our map is not exhibited here, but it is exhibited together with the other maps that we have made in this project at Varkfabrieken. And Varkfabrieken is a very beautiful little museum where you have also great coffee at the island Liljeholmen.
Liljeholmen.
Liljeholmen. I have to be like a Swede. So if you have time, please do go there. It's for free. And we are very curious what you think of it, of course. Yes.
Yeah. Having said that, we prepared, I think, this afternoon. Well, we didn't need a Zoom call together, but we see each other more often than the previous 2 speakers, so that wasn't necessary. And there's like 3, sentences maybe that we want to elaborate on. The first one, I just wrote down, we need new narratives. And you, Molly, said, no, skip the new, because that's not true. So I will keep it short. We need narratives. What we mean with that, and the ones who've heard the presentation of Marlies yesterday will maybe know already that we, in our map, describe and depict some narrative stories, myths that we have come across here in Stockholm. I think the pub quiz from Bernd yesterday, the conference quiz, through narratives learned us we got a quite intimate view of Seestadt through this form. Is Frozo still here? Yeah, there you are. Your project is all about narratives that you found in a very beautiful way, I think, on Evia. We will get back to that also later, I think. We've heard the Greek ambassador giving a lecture about the Greek myths and how they maybe or maybe not still play a role or could play a role in the future, how we tackle urgent issues. And to underpin this idea a little bit, why we wanted to pose it here is, I read a book some time ago in which, let's say, it was posed somehow that the only difference between men and other animals, or humans and other animals, is that we are able to think in abstract concepts, and that, we somehow can create narratives that we all, or at least partially, believe in, and makes us do great things, like building cathedrals, whatever you could call that great, but that's another discussion. And, you know, I wrote down, we visited the Nordiska Museum, and there was a small exhibition about climate change. We rather call it climate, well, disaster or whatever how you want to call it. And it somehow becomes very clear that if we don't do radical things as human beings, we will be extinct in some generations.
Yeah.
And yeah, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to react on the fact that you publicly said that skip the new, because it's true.
Yeah.
I said that, but it's because in conferences like these, we have the tendency to speak in big words. We should do this, we have to do that, we must go do that, we have to, I don't know, it all. And I think even the word narratives is too big. And maybe we just need little stories. And that is not, it's not that we just little stories without the needing. I think, yeah, at least I would profit from little stories told by big people with mustaches, but then explained to children, the stories that we could read in the carvings along Lake Mälaren. Little stories, not big ones, not black and white ones, not new ones, just little stories. I think it would be nice if we could benefit from little stories. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Why I wanted to skip the new. Yeah.
Yeah. So rather elaborate on the stories. Maybe we've come across also Anita rock carvings. We would also recommend the exhibition of Britta Marakatlaba, the Sami artist, in which it's all about stories, embroidery, not just from the past, but I mean, it's recurrent and it's maybe more urgent than ever to also include indigenous perspectives on how to
Yes.
work with ecosystems.
And maybe reflecting a little bit on stories and how they are told, because some of the topics that she is discussing are huge stories, huge topics, difficult topics, very present ones as well. But she tells them with the most soft material, which is wool, which is textile. She's not telling them in a way like we have to go outside and protest, and nothing against that either, but she tells them in a pure softness, which makes that the story only enters in your veins more deeply than ever. And we have been talking a lot about collaboration and communication, and we should collaborate more. And I don't know how to communicate, and to communicate, we have to draw and we don't have to write. And I don't know, it's maybe just have a look at Britta, her work. It's not saying how, but it is showing maybe how we could do that. Yeah, or the beautiful book there, it's explaining a tragic story of Greece. In the most, it's not childish drawings, that's the right, put in a childish or innocent
in
and
an honest way, maybe.
in an honest way, and without attacking, without defending those stories.
And without pointing fingers, maybe, in a way.
Or maybe it does, but in a friendly way.
Second topic. We promised to keep it short. We don't need politics. Politics need people. And that maybe comes from,
Big words again.
Ivona. We tried from the beginning of the project to involve politicians. You know, sometimes we succeeded, sometimes less. We always felt like, where is our impact? We were searching for it. I think the day before yesterday, we heard a podcast because in the Netherlands, we have elections again, luckily, because there's a new chance to get rid of this government we had. Aside from that, in the podcast, it was about, politics somehow should be or started like, hey, we have some goal, we have an idea, we push somebody forward and let's represent us, please. And the maker of the podcast, he said, like, it seems that sometimes it's turned the other way around now, that there is like politicians searching for topics, themes, arguments to attract voters, which you could say that's the birth of populism somehow. And we were intrigued by it somehow, and also try to reflect upon our project and Turning the Tide in general. Is there maybe another way of, finding another language or representing something without trying to indeed pull people towards us, but open up a different kind of dialogue? And I think, Marlies, you mentioned some things about both the lectures this morning or afternoon from Marie-André and before Emma, Professor Emma, I think she was.
Yeah, and I can't remember that anymore, what I said, but
all fine.
Because I talk too much. I have too much big words. But I had to think about the title of this topic, about who needs who. But maybe we could change it again into we are all politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all make constantly a political statement. We don't need politicians to do that for us somehow. And it doesn't, again, need to be big. It can be that we don't eat meat, for example, or it can be to stay in climate change, I don't fly, or these are all political statements that we can make without being in the politics is about having ambassadors talking about the political game that happens somewhere. It's much, much more than that. And I think if we would be aware of that, we would maybe feel stronger and less lost maybe in the whole political debate and in the big challenges we seem to face in front of us. And you have to laugh.
No, it indeed is a whole other story that we prepared, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Third one?
Yeah, if there's nobody who wants to add something, then we can go to the...
Yeah, please.
But only if it's a small question. We only do small.
Small. No, but maybe just a reflection then. And we're
we're
in
was a little
Stockholm.
Yeah.
Try to keep it small. Now, being in Stockholm, and that's kind of the topical study. And speaking of how do the politicians and the layer down to the people. And until the 50s, there used to be this Nordic way where we supposedly in these Nordic countries, probably because it's cold and, dreary sometimes, we were really good at this cooperating, and there are estimates that maybe 25% were direct democracy.
Mm-hmm.
So these layers that you're discussing with the politicians is from upside down, and that connection is just two layers, people and then the meta level. But we imported a different system in the 90s. So I think all of the West is in the same kind of difficulty. But we can turn it around, 180 degrees, start over.
There is something else you turned around.
That was a really
ago.
small word.
From driving left to right, I think you did that in one night. If you can do that, you can change the democratic system maybe also in one night.
We're turning around.
Secretly.
Already.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third one.
Yeah, the third one.
It's something I heard this afternoon during lunch when I was eating my sandwich, looking for somebody who told it. Well, doesn't matter. The title is wrong. I was attended on the Turning the Tide project, and somebody told me, literally said, well, I think the title is wrong because turning evokes fear, or it has to do with fear, and it indicates that we need to take action. And then I said, the word action is underneath it. It's quite small, but you can read it over there. And I tried to explain. I said, maybe it's because European projects, the people who read it, they really expect action and statements and, you know, impact. Maybe that's why it's there. But he said, you know, how can you turn a tide? I mean, you can only work with it. And I think maybe that's also in line with what we have heard yesterday and today. In order to work with a tide instead of fighting against something, you have to understand. I wrote down, you have to read, you have to listen, you have to observe. Maybe that is what we also try to do when we do our cartopological projects. We have no aim of getting somewhere. We just want to know, to find out how it is somewhere and try to map that so as precise as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, try to map that as good as we can, and from our point of view, from what we perceive, and I'm an academic too, and saying that might be very contradictory. Because everything needs to be objective and you need to be neutral, but that is, if I can use one a big word, being neutral is bullshit. Nobody is that, because we're all humans, we're not machines. We're all human beings and studying something mostly because we're incredibly interested in it. So saying that I am neutral in my research, whether it's academic or not, is a lie. It is simply a lie. So doing it from a very personal point of view is something that I would encourage everybody saying when they do academic or any kind of research, and then explaining what your point of view or what your point of view or your starting point is. Who are you then as a researcher? And allowing that point of view makes everything very complicated. Because pointing towards a study is much easier than pointing towards a person. Pointing or starting all from very consultant-like objectivity, it is easy to collaborate, and because you don't really, you collaborate from an objective point of view. But if you do that from a personal point of view, it is a mess. It's messy, it's chaotic, and it is super difficult then to communicate or to collaborate. And I think that's something that we tend to forget, and we don't show it in turning the tide either. I think doing this project for the last 2 years almost showed us as well that we're not only trying to show our best in conference rooms and in beautiful buildings and dressing up and trying to explain our best, but it's also a lot of messy Zoom meetings where we misunderstand one another. I see a lot of nodding there. We're human, exactly, and let us be human in that way, and let us be small, just individual creatures that think differently, and therefore we have to go with the tide rather than be against it somehow.
Turning doesn't mean against. Turning is a different direction.
Definitely, yeah.
Although I think it suggests an action. I mean, action is necessary, of course, to survive. I agree, but the value of this project could also be in silently observing, seeing patterns, recognizing things, maybe pinpointing them, and through that learning a lot could also be of value, I think.
Yes.
Just a thought. Yes, please.
Definitely you can.
There will be a microphone, I think, if... Yeah.
Liz was first.
Women first.
Yeah.
Sorry, Thomas. You're second.
No, I just wanted to comment on the what you were saying about not having objectivity when you're in academic research, and absolutely agree with that. And I think what we're about is finding the evidence to back up what we know to be true from our passions and from our interests and from our own experience. And it's the finding of that evidence and the demonstrating that evidence in sometimes small stories like we've been doing today. I think the value of turning the tide is the collation over 3 years of a huge body of evidence to demonstrate and underline what we know to be true, but which we need to share with those who don't know it yet.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's nice to hear that you agree with that objectivity. And maybe just to add to that is, in your presentation, you had intuitive knowledge. You had like bullet points of very statistic kind of things, and all of a sudden that is based on intuitive knowledge. And I was mind blown to see that in your list somehow. So yeah, so I still wanted to ask what that then means. But just to say that maybe it's much more shared than I made it maybe a bit too black and white. Yeah, you had it.
So just a little
Thanks, Liz.
opinion or a question that we can reflect on, maybe, that with all this background, the experience, and where this tidal wave of what you've done here, is it the right focus to questioning whether turning is opposing or adjusting or adopting? Isn't it the content here that is the important? And I would just like to stop with that, because I think if we start to addressing the labels of a conference or a meeting or a panel, then we are focused on the wrong things.
Yeah, I understand what you say. Yeah, and I agree. On the one hand, I agree that it should not be about the title of the project. On the other hand, I think it starts to show our sensitivity towards the project and towards like, is turning then, is it still the right word about what we're doing? So you see that we are growing in the project and that we question even the title, even though it is less of the problem or less of all the problems that we have. I totally agree with that. But it shows how sensitive we become on the first hand and also how comfortable we became with one another to share that vulnerability and that and those reflections in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think it also, well, questioning that leads to a constant re-evaluation of where are we, what is our aim, and how can we at best somehow make this project land somewhere, wherever that may be, because that wasn't clear at the beginning. As I said, we focused on, well, politicians, there's where the message should land. That somehow, I mean, is still open for discussion and debate. And I think it is somehow at the core of like, where are we going to, and how will we then translate that message? Because that work still has to be done. We have more than 40 artworks. We are also learning from them, incorporating all these messages and voices, and the way how we translate them defines where they will or will not land, where they will be read or understood, because indeed we can translate them in various languages. We have heard the word more today. It depends on which language we use, who will be able to work with it or not. And then we're talking about the instrumentalization of art and the artist, and there were some bold statements today, I think, about that. And that is also a discussion we, within the project team, will have, I'm sure, and that will be a quite severe discussion, I think. But I think important, but indeed also the least of all our worries is about the word at the same time, yeah.
I just want to say to the small stories, I agree totally. And Selina Lavinia, she made really a beautiful video, a film about these stories, like when children were talking and some people on the street. This is an absolutely good example where the big situation with the small stories are coming together. That's why, because we could see it here.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, and indeed, I think by mentioning one of the artists now, I mean, we forgot about other ones. We could also have mentioned the work of Selina, of course. Yeah, good that you mentioned it.
And maybe I just want to say a last thing about the title, because we say we need another title or it's wrong. But what I really adore about the title, just to stay in those specific things, is that it's not turn the tide, it's turning the tide. So it makes it active. It makes it somehow, we're busy turning it. So it makes it about a process rather than something we have to do or something we have done. And that is for me very, very important, just to pick little things.
Just to comment about the turning the tide. I was really amazed when we came to Evia. And we've seen how the tide is turning naturally. In Evia, under the bridge, when we had our intervention, our conference, the tide literally turned. So during the time we were there. So it's possible that the nature itself turns the tide. That happens actually. I don't want to discuss the title. It doesn't matter anymore, but we've seen it and it was amazing. But about the small stories, there is this beautiful map of Stockholm, which was mentioned here several times. There are maps of other cities as well. And that map is full of small stories. From Stockholm and from the entire country. There are small details in it, and I wish that we could see it here.
We have it with us. We can open it again.
Please.
And put it on a table. That's a promise.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Yes. You want me to open it like a performance act? Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Make a performance.
How do they call this? Performance lectures?
Oh, yeah. Forgot about those. Thank you, Liz.
We are all about the artists, you know. You have to do something now.
Oh, yeah, now
perform now.
I thought we were partners. We'll talk about that when we have to do the deliverables.
Partners, artists, architects, friends. So you have to do the whole package now.
Nee, één is genoeg toch? Okay, if Remy is standing up, it's getting official. You see? I think we'll manage.
We'll manage.
I don't know what Remy has in mind.
Just open it. I think we need photos also for the deliverables.
So thanks for that.
Basically, I mean, you spoke about it yesterday, but indeed there is layers in time. So this is depicting Stockholm, Sweden, actually, as you can see now from the Baltic, south till north, land slowly going up. The three main geological components in the underground depicted over here. To the north, the rare earth materials are coming up a bit more. And then on the inside, you could say this is today's layer. So less snow, less ice. There's still people skating at the Åre ski resort. We never know how long that will be possible, but anyhow, Lake Mälaren in the middle, a sea view, you could say, from Stockholm. And indeed, as you said, Iwona, little stories which are distributed along the map, described in English. Yes. You want to add something?
I just wanted to add, we have now 4 copies, of which 2 are already sold. We will make a new one, so if you would like to have one, then contact us, and then we can make sure we have one extra. And we have still 2 remaining here, of which one is, of course, for our Stockholm partner, which is Intercult. So, yep. Iwona, let's make it really official. Would you please come up so that we can give you officially, because you're waiting for that. The map. You want to give this one?
Yeah.
So here you go.
The best present of all.
No, I don't know. Everybody got a present already, but this is the map of Stockholm. And maybe one last thing I wanted to add, which was for us important, also referring to the work of Britta, is that we glued it on textile, which had been done in the past. And we wanted to do that again. And the textile comes from Stadsmissionen Stockholm. So it made us make a great tour around all the second-hand shops. So they're also a bit part of the project. So here you go. So I think that's it. That's it for us, Elisabeth.
Elisa, the floor is yours again.
Yes. So thank you so much for staying so long, such a long day, listening to our talk.
Great closure. Thank you so much. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone, for today. I hope you enjoyed it as we enjoyed it. That's not the last day of our conference. We have also one day tomorrow at Wrak Museum. We start at 1. The title of the day is Future Visions and Actions. So we have a talk about the future of humanity, the next steps towards action. We have a beautiful performance of our Austrian duo, Andrian and Simeon, that you can see there live. And at 7 o'clock, we have the showcase of our local artists, Jona Bolamers and Agnieszka Sobieska, at Stadskostterminalen, entrance E at 7. One last thing to ask is that walking out the door, you will see this little sign with a QR code. This is our... Yeah, thank you, Jean. So Jean is showing you the QR code. Please take like 1 second to give us an evaluation. It's so important for us. So once again, thank you so much. Have a nice evening and see you tomorrow.